What's up everyone, Moses here, and I wanted to make this video to show you guys how I go from this portrait, which is the raw portrait, to this portrait, which is my edit. I did this photo shoot a couple days ago with my fellow classmate May. I'm going to link her information below. She does Twitch streaming, got an Instagram too, so check her out, show some support, show some love. I'm sure she'd appreciate that too. Yeah, I just wanted to make this video to have some fun and show you guys how I do what I do. So without further ado, let's get it. Cool. So first of all, looking at this portrait, I think it's a really cool portrait to start with. I think what I'm gonna start off doing is zooming into her face and just cleaning up some blemishes first. I'm going to use the remove tool along with the healing brush, I believe. There we go. And I'm just gonna start healing her skin. And you know, this is all subjective. If you want to keep parts of a person's face, that's totally fine. If your client or friend, model, whoever you're working with wants certain things in there, definitely worth keeping that in there, because some features on people's faces may be like true to them. So you don't want to like get those removed. So I'm just going to do some light work here, some light blemish removal. I might speed up this portion of the video if there's nothing extra I have to mention, but for now, check this out. I'm just going through all the spots which I see are kind of darker than the other spots and matching it with what's next to it to give it like a cleaner look. Cool. I'm liking her chin. Her cheek here looks pretty clean. Gonna get rid of some of these other spots too. Nice. It's going really well actually. She has quite even skin, so it's very nice to just use the healing brush to grab a piece of skin from somewhere else and kind of clone it over the patch that I'm working on. Looking good, looking good. Cool, much cleaner face. Just gonna get rid of a couple more things. Waiting for the song. I always try to match with with skin next to where I'm cutting out, so that things don't look, you know, mismatched and uneven in terms of the model's skin. And I like that. I think she looks clean, and yeah, it's very easy to focus on her face as well. Now let's get into some of the smaller settings. Let's see exposure. Not too bad, not too bad. I have a thing about Lightroom and editing software in general. I tend to go towards the even numbers when it comes to my settings. I'm not sure why, but it feels good. And a lot of the time you have to eye these things. And a lot of the time I notice that when I enjoy what I'm looking at, it's usually like in even numbers. This is not a rule. This is just something that I do. You definitely don't have to do what I do, but if it feels good to you, then by all means do your thing. I'm gonna bring up the highlights as high as they can go and then bring them down slowly until I feel happy with what I'm looking at. Let's go 8. Clarity, I don't like to use too much clarity. Because sometimes I feel like clarity can ruin an image, especially if you're sharpening it at the end of the process, which is what I do. If I sharpen it right now, things tend to look a bit over-processed in the end. So definitely want to avoid that. In Lightroom, I'm just going to keep things simple. Maybe even change the color temperature a little bit to kind of make it seem a lot more bright and bright and sunny, which it was actually. So this right here is more accurate to what the day was. I'm now noticing just a bit more blemish on her forehead. So let's get that out. Cool. I'm pretty happy with where that is so far. I'm not gonna do anything with the colors or anything right now because I like to save that for Photoshop. So what we're gonna do here is right click, edit in Adobe Photoshop 2024. And here we are. First thing I really wanna do is work with her eyes and kind of bring them out more because she has quite big eyes and quite bright eyes as well. It might be nice to bring that out. So I'm going to take my curves tool and I'm going to use the color picker, or well, the picker pretty much. I don't know what it's officially called. It's just click and drag, just a description. And I'm going to click and drag on a bright part of her eye, maybe even a darker part actually, and just bring that up. And what I'm gonna do is fill the mask created by the curves with black. And then, so I keep things clean, zoom into her eye, and I'm just going to use my pen tool and cut out around her eye so that when I do the when I use white to kind of unmask the layer, the brightness of her eyes is only going to be on her eye. The brightness will only be on her eye. And then we're going to do that, and there we go. Now I can see there's a bit of a sharp edge here. Let me zoom out a little bit. So I'm gonna take my brush tool and just kinda tap, 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 click, click, click to make the outside of her eye look more natural. And we're gonna do the same thing with the other eye. So, pen tool, start doing that. And same thing, fill it with white, take your brush tool, and just click on the outside so it's not so rough. Nice. Now, so we can see what's actually happening, I'm going to put this in a group and call it eyes. Keep things organized and fair. And then switch it on and off to see what's happening. I like what's happening with her eyes. They're a lot more present. And if you wanted to, you could bring up somebody's eyes more if you're doing this. I like that little bit of added brightness actually. It's very surreal. Cool. I'm pretty happy with her eyes there. Now what we're gonna do is look at the red around her skin. So the red's obviously because she's a living person and you know, you have blood going around your face. So depending on the situation, your face may get a bit red. So what I'm gonna do here is make a little mask around her face or parts of her face. And I'm gonna make a selection. And what we're gonna do here is bring up the selective color. And with that, let's play around and see how this red is affected by different things, different colors. You have all these colors to pick from, and I wanna pick a color that's gonna remove the red. See, that makes it a bit more green, which we don't want. And here we can see the outer lines. Excuse me. Really harsh lines, which we can get rid of by just feathering the mask itself, which we will do in a moment. That makes it more red. So I think we should go on to the yellow and see what that does. Interesting. So it's not yellow that it's picking up, maybe magenta. It's picking up as magenta, interestingly enough. Okay, that's cool. So we're gonna bring up the magentas between cyan and yellow. Seems to fix the color quite nicely. Maybe a bit too much actually. Nice. Now that we've already done that, we can literally just look at other red bits of her skin and do the same thing. So I'm gonna make a mask and then close it, make a selection and fill that part with white. And there we go. Very subtle difference. I'm turning it on and off right now. Off, on, off, on. Very subtle, but it definitely evens out her skin, which we want. And then I'm gonna do the same, maybe that's too much, on her chin. Nice. Maybe a little bit here as well. Great. I think she's looking very, very clean, very fresh. Cool. We're gonna put that in a group. Face redness. Nice. I want to move on to the background now. I want to kind of create some separation, not even kind of, I want to create some separation between her and the background. So I'm going to use select subject and it selects the subject. Go figure. And then what I'm going to do here is create a selective color with the background as a mask. And let's see what happens when we start changing colors here. This is like the playful part. Let's see what happens. I like how it's becoming a bit more of a deep saturated red here. Let's move on to yellow, see if that does anything. It definitely adds like some warmth a little bit, which is cool. Not against some warmth. You can see it specifically at the top here, what it's doing, what this yellow is doing. So I think I'm gonna keep it at like magenta. Magenta, keep it at 17, not magenta, excuse me. And then let's see what cyans do. Ooh, cyans kind of take away. Cyan takes away the cyan, which is cool if you move it to the left, -100. And if you keep playing with it, you can get to green, you can get to purple, bluish, which is interesting as well. So I'm gonna leave it as that, because I like the fact that the whole shot seems to be like red and it's quite a mood if I do say so myself. And I'm gonna call this, put this in a group called CG for color grade. Color grade. There is some more color grading we're gonna do, but for now, I'm gonna leave that as is. And we're gonna focus on her t-shirt. So, I'm going to, not make a new layer, I use the selective color quite a lot because it's a very useful feature if you can figure out how exactly you want to use it. So I'm going to bring up her shirt color. See the reds? Obviously the shirt is red, so it's going to pick that up. And just let me mess with it a little bit, see what's happening here. I like how bright that is. Ooh, that turns it a bit more purple pink, which is cool, but I want to keep it true. So we're going to keep it to the red and maybe shift it this way. And then the blacks obviously kind of are responsible for brightness. So we're going to do that with the black. I like that. So that we keep everything where it's supposed to be, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a rough mask around May's head. And I'm going to remove all the effects that are responsible on this selective color from her face, so that we don't have too much influence on her face from other layers, basically. And then we're going to, there we go, Command I. The red has been removed from her face. As you can see, her face is staying the same. Cool. Shirt. Excellent. I'm gonna switch that layer off. And I'm gonna create some depth in this photograph. I'm gonna do that by separating her even more from the background. We can use a variety of tools, but for this one, I'm gonna use my curves tool and I'm gonna bring down these curves by a lot. And then I'm going to take a mask from a different layer of May, and then I'm gonna put it on that background layer. And what happens, as you can see, is it makes the background darker, which results, well, the result in the end is that the shot looks a lot more depthy. Depthy is not a real word, a real descriptive word for photography, but there you go, depthy. And I like how that's looking. It doesn't look too dark, but what I'm gonna do as well is add some feathering. So let's do like 6. And for anyone that doesn't know, feathering just makes the outsides of your masks a lot softer, so nothing looks too harsh and cut out. And yeah, I think that looks good. I want to see what happens if I put a brightness layer here, bring it down just a bit with some contrast, or maybe even just contrast, and put the same layer there. I think that's pretty nice, to be honest with you. I'm gonna bring it down because it's a lot. There we go. Group that, rename it background. I'm gonna switch that off. Now, I'm going to use an action that I got from PH Learn. It's a Photoshop channel called Photoshop Learn, official Photoshop channel, I think. I could be wrong. I'm going to double check and put that in the actual video if I'm wrong. Yeah, they have a really awesome action in Photoshop called frequency separation. And what that does is it gives you the very model-like frequency separation skin smoothing effect where you can see the texture on the skin, which I really like. You can use it just to clean up the skin, or you can use it to kind of give it that editorial look. So let's see what happens for this portrait. Now to do this, you have to select a blur amount, which I think 9 should be enough. And it creates some layers for us here. And what's gonna happen now is I can go in to this image. I can use my cloning tool, set it to current, and then I can quite literally look at spots that I want out. This is a good example. A lot of the time in mainstream editorial photography, they want women to look youthful and men to look mature. These are just rules of mainstream. I don't really care. But for this video, I think it might be nice if we make her look completely awake and not like, you know, bags under her eyes and things like that. So I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to just remove these bags under her eyes. And you see how nicely this does that? I really, really love this action. There you go. Super simple, completely awake May. What else can we get rid of here while we're here? See, it helps really nicely with like smaller details because I think it takes into account what's already in the image because it creates an extra layer that you can work from. And then get rid of some of these things here. Waiting for the song. Yeah, that's good. Waiting for the song. Sweet. I really, really like how this is going. It's feeling very clean, uniform. Sweet. Now we're going to click on the other layer here, and similar to what we did with removing the redness, we're going to create some masks around her face and use the Gaussian blur option to, I probably butchered saying that just now, but excuse me. We're going to use the Gaussian blur to create kind of a very soft skin type of effect. I've made my selection. I'm going to select Gaussian blur. And then maybe not all the way, maximum, maybe like 4. And what that does is when you start to pull out, pull back, you get to see like her skin is much softer, which is really what we want for a portrait like this. So I'm just gonna do that around different areas of her face. You'll notice that I've switched off all my other layers. That's because I don't want to be influenced by whatever is happening in the other layers. That's just my personal preference of working, and you can work however you want. So, just gonna do this. And then, some blur. You'll also notice I use the search bar a lot. I wish Photoshop had like a quick action or a quick shortcut to find different shortcuts or different options instead of just going up to the search bar all the time, which is kind of annoying. I'm sure there's a plugin or attachment somewhere, extension somewhere, which will allow me to do that. And if anyone knows, let me know. Let your boy know. Add some more Gaussian blur there. Nice. Nice. I really like how this is going. And you'll notice I'm focusing on the face because her face is the main part of the photograph. She's looking into the camera, so it would be wise to just focus on her face. I'm pretty happy. Now let me turn on everything. Background, t-shirt, eyes, face redness, and color grade. I like how this is going. It's very moody. Now what I'm gonna do, because this is kind of a hit or miss type of thing, but it's part of the process. You don't have to keep it. I'm gonna go look at color lookup and then see what color lookups look good. Keep in mind that when you apply a color lookup, it's gonna be quite intense because the effect is at 100%. You can change the fill or opacity, or even the blending options to fit your style even more. So let's see what else we got just before we decide on something. I like the Kodak and Fuji. Oh, this one is very cool, actually. I like the mood here. Let me bring the fill down on this and just keep some of that energy from the filter in the shot, which is really, really nice. Sweet. Cool. Nice. I'm pretty happy with this. And here's one more thing I'm gonna do before I go back into Lightroom. I'm gonna merge everything and then turn this merge into a smart object so I don't damage the actual merged image. And I'm gonna go to filter, neural filters, and this is also a bit of a hit or miss with Photoshop. Neural filters and skin smoothing. Even though I just smoothed the skin, this adds a different type of depth, a different type of feeling to the image, which I like. And as you can tell, it's quite literally doing what it says. It smooths the skin. So I'm gonna switch it off, switch it on. Now what I'm gonna do is apply the effect, but I'm going to create a mask because I don't want this to look too artificial and too processed. And I'm gonna start removing some of the neural filter itself. Say, for example, like on her nose, where this should be a bit more definition around. As you can see what it does, it kind of makes things a bit blurry, but also very blurry, but also like uniformly edited, if that makes any sense. It has like this very fantasy-like effect that you see in a lot of magazines. Very useful tool, but I would use it sparingly for sure. Otherwise, you risk your work looking very artificial. There we go. I'm gonna bring it down just a bit so we see through that layer a bit more. Perfect. Now I'm gonna press save, and what should happen is this image should upload into Lightroom. There we go. Now we're back in Lightroom, and we're gonna finalize this image. And I'm going to maybe bring up the color temperature a bit more, make it look really warm. Love that. Bring that up a bit more as well. shadows do. Great. I think that's it. And we're gonna add a bit more clarity again. This is why I don't add too much in the first part, because you're gonna end up doing more in the end, and rather have less at the beginning and more at the end. I'm gonna add some sharpening. And if you zoom in, you see that effect from the neural filter isn't so present because I've taken down the opacity and it still has a natural sharp look to it. So I'm quite happy with this portrait. Bring up sharpening just a bit more, and then now we're gonna color grade within Lightroom and see what comes out nice. I feel like I'm getting a little lucky today with these edits because the options are working out quite well. This is nice. This is a cool mid-tone color. Let's see what else. And we're gonna adjust these too. I like what the cyan is doing, but it's a bit too intense. And then we're going to check with shadows. I don't think I'm gonna manipulate the shadow color too much, or at all, possibly. Let's see. Yeah, no, shadow color is okay. Now what we're gonna do here is the lightness of the effect. So the lightness of the color wheels is controlled here, basically. And you can control the other aspects of the color wheel as well. I'm just controlling lightness as well. And then I'm gonna blend it in just a bit more. Then bring the balance this way. I think what I'm gonna do, if you click on this button here, if you're following along, you can actually get into more detail and see what's going on with your colors. Midtones, so I'm gonna bring down the midtones just a bit because it seems a bit intense to me. That's cool. I like the mood. And then I'm gonna bring down that as well. Bring up the highlights just a bit. So I'm pretty happy with what we've got going on here. And I don't think there's much more I want to do except add a little bit of grain for that classic feel of a portrait. 30 is a good number, not too intense. You can even reduce the size of the grain or increase the size, but increasing the size makes it look kind of blurry, and we don't want that. Amazing. Now all we're gonna do here is save the image, and there you go. That's how I approach some of my portraits. Sometimes it gets a little more intense, a little more in depth, depending on what I'm really trying to do. But this was a photo shoot that I had with a fellow classmate and just wanted to have some fun. I'm pretty happy, and I hope you like what you see too. Cool.